I have gotten an extraordinary number of letters and comments and emails and various forms of communications. In the interview we did on Tuesday with Father Michael Schmitz, and almost all of the letters went the same way. At the end of the interview, I was discussing with Father Michael, who has written a book about the church's attitude toward gay people, and basically that they shouldn't and don't. And but it's a loving attitude and an acceptance of what he calls same-sex attraction, but saying that this is not your identity and this is not a sexual relationship that the church can approve of, and he explained why. And when I asked him on his own, they're basically making Aristotelian Thomist arguments. Thomist meaning from Thomas Aquinas, the arguments being that things are for something, they should be used for that thing, that is where their virtue lies, and that sex was made for procreation and for binding people together in love, but it should never be used outside, it should never be used in a way that is antagonistic to procreation. I think that would be a fair way to say it. And my question for him was, well, why can't its central role as being for procreation, why can't that be subsumed into a secondary role of being to cement loving relationships between gay people once you eliminate all the other things that are destructive, like promiscuity and betrayal and mistreating people and the use of force and attacking people who can't make up their mind, who can't make a fair decision, like young people. Why can't it be used just to cement a loving, committed gay relationship? All the letters that I've gotten basically feel that Father Michael did not come up with a good answer. I didn't feel that his answer was convincing because I feel that I'm not sure there is an answer. But all the people who wrote to me said, no, here's the argument. Here is the good argument. None of them, as far as I was concerned, and I don't mean this offensively, none of them made arguments that convinced me. Many people wrote in great goodwill, without hostility, without meanness, without hatred. Many people wrote in. But their arguments were excellent arguments for why the heterosexual procreative relationship should be at the center of human life. And of course it is, because without it, there is no human life, right? I mean, every gay person could go away and there still be human life. But without that central relationship of a man and woman bringing a child into the world, that is at the center of human life. My question has always been, why can't things that aren't at the center, why do we immediately have to say that they're evil or sinful or bad? And some people just quoted the Bible and some people had other arguments they made. I didn't find any of them convincing. Some of the people who wrote in were not writing in with goodwill. These were the minority of people, but their arguments were basically, you call yourself a Christian? How can you call yourself a Christian and allow, and my feeling about that is I call myself a Christian because I follow the risen Christ. This has changed my life entirely. It has given me, I was baptized, I think it's like 13, 14 years ago. This many years later, I find that within me there is a stillness and peace that I would never, ever, ever have expected to be there. I'm a type A guy. I work hard. I sleep very little. I care a lot about what I'm doing. And yet I now have at my center, because of my following of the risen Christ, I now have this core of stillness and calm that is really a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it makes all of life more beautiful. I recommend it highly. It's a good payoff for following. I do not call myself a Christian because I follow you. That's basically what it comes down to. But but all these letters led me to think about a broader political question, which is, what do you want? What do you want when you write to me and you say these things? Obviously, and Father Michael certainly wouldn't want this, you do not want to go back to a time when gay people were persecuted, which they were in my lifetime. In my lifetime, a police officer could walk into a bar, wait until a gay person solicited him and then arrest him. For what? For being gay. That's what he could do. He could do that. And that was legal. I don't think anybody really wants to go back to that time, or do they? I don't know. This is the question. But the question of what we want as conservatives always concerns me, because I know what we don't like, of course. I always hear a lot about what conservatives hate, and some of it doesn't make any sense. So we don't like government, but we don't want our entitlements to be taken away. We want other people's entitlements to be taken away, but not ours. We want there to be Medicare. We want there to be Social Security. We have bought into what was once a radical left idea that the government should take money away from one person and give it to another. Now, I am a very, very practical person. This is what drives people mad. There is no good principle by which you can steal money from one person and give it to another. And just because you happen to be the government doesn't give you any more right to do that than if you had a gun and you were Robin Hood. It does not give you the right to do it. And always remember, as Stephen Crowder taught me, that Robin Hood was stealing from the people who were collecting the taxes. That's why the people were poor, because they were collecting taxes. But anyway, there's no good reason to do it. However, I'm a practical person, and I see that social spending really does make life better in the country for everybody, and it preserves my principles. Without some social spending, I do not believe that people would tolerate freedom for very long. I believe that social spending is how you keep people tolerating the inequalities of freedom so they don't fall completely into the realm of poverty. So I violate my principles for practical reasons, to keep my principles as alive as I can keep them alive. That is what I call being a practical person. But I hear, conservatives don't like political correctness. But then we are always making the argument that we're the more politically correct. We always say, well, our women are more empowered than feminist women. We treat people without regard to color. You're just extending racism through identity politics. So we're actually arguing on the terms of the left. And so I ask myself, what do we want? Do we want a world where black people are treated exactly equal to white people, even if it means that the old inequalities remain? What do we want? And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, what do we want? And I know we hate the illegals coming over the borders, but why? We're accused of not liking brown people. I don't like this because I believe in the rule of law. My feeling is, hey, if we need people coming over the border, I don't care what color Americans are. I do not care, but I want them to be obeying the law. And if we have a law and you pass the law, to have somebody like our governor in California saying, oh yeah, we're just not going to enforce that, to me, that is vastly shameful. That is deeply shameful, because what you are saying is you are king. You don't have to obey the law. Everybody else is. So we've got, Paul Ryan is retiring. Here's a good example. Paul Ryan is retiring, and all I hear, I'm getting this note again and again. What a rhino, he's a rhino, he's a Republican in name only. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. It's Paul Ryan who has fought to cut entitlements. It's Paul Ryan who has tried to make the government smaller. Trump has done this in some ways by appointing judges who will obey the Constitution. Trump has done it in some ways by cutting back regulations. But Trump has sworn to preserve these entitlements because his voters, theoretically conservative voters, they do not want those entitlements to go away. And so he said, I will not touch them. As I said yesterday, I think you could touch them, just fix them a little bit, dial them a little bit, as Ryan wanted to do. And Ryan takes these shots. Ben Shapiro today, he made a great point. He said Paul Ryan gets blamed for a lot of stuff that should be heaped at the feet of Mitch McConnell. And I believe that is absolutely true. Ryan got a lot of conservative bills passed in the House that went to the Senate where they died the death. And that was Mitch McConnell, and Ryan got blamed for it. I think Ryan has been a moderate guy. The one thing is he has been very loosey-goosey on immigration. And I don't think people like Paul Ryan understood how offensive that is to people. It's emotionally offensive that it's emotionally offensive to have the government say to you, yeah, we're not obeying the law. We're the government. We pass the laws. We're not obeying them. That is just emotionally offensive. If they could have done some kind of reform, it's also just incredibly shameful that both sides can't do anything.